Sam, we can't play games today. We cannot play games today. We can't do this.
Thanks so much for tuning in.
Oh my god. We're not playing games. Oh my god. Okay.
What do you mean? I don't understand. We're gonna talk like this.
You're listening to Enhance, the podcast dedicated to highlighting real stories told by real people.
Hello, Enhance listeners. This is Sam Brown, your host. Thank you so much for tuning back in to another awesome, amazing, fantastic episode of Enhance. And today I'm joined by the one, the only Gabby.
Hey! How's it going, guys?
Oh my goodness. It's taking up my Saturday because she doesn't want to record on a Sunday.
Someone sounds bitter.
So remember the Sabbath, keep it holy, all that good stuff, you know? Did you prepare an icebreaker for us today? Because I did not. Did you?
Absolutely. Yeah, I do have one. I do have one. It's a little bit more of a funny one. It's not as like deep as normal because I just feel like the topic of this episode is about to be a little deep, so I just wanted to keep it light, you know?
That's what we do. We laugh during episodes about deep topics.
Absolutely.
I mean, literally the one that we just posted, because we're 2 weeks in advance now, thank God. And the one that we just posted is about religion, but specifically from like a Christian point of view. And like about how you can be liberal and be a Christian. You don't have to be a bigot. So, and in that episode, Parker and I laughed our asses off. Yeah. We talked a lot about like religious trauma and all kinds of stuff like that. And we laughed so much. I honestly got tired of hearing myself laugh. And also, I had to turn my mic sensitivity up because Parker was in person. It was my first in-person like guest host. And so, because I turned my mic sensitivity up, every time I spoke or like made a p or sound with my mouth, you could hear it in the, like the mic went boop, boop. And I was like, are you fucking serious? And I was able to put some nice filters over it in post to like make it not as bad, but it's still, you could hear it. So apologies to everyone.
It's okay. We're learning, we're living, we're thriving, and we're surviving. So, yeah.
Yeah, we're doing it. I'm using my whole college degree in this.
I'm using maybe 5%.
Your talent.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I mean...
all those nights in film club.
You know, I was thinking about that the other day, and I was just like, wow, I remember how we became closer, like friends, is that one student film where it was like a scary like bonfire situation, and yeah,
I was so bad.
That was the cringiest honestly thing ever, but I had to get pulled in as an actor last minute when I was just supposed to be behind the scenes, so that was a very
do you remember
trauma. That? Anyway, so the icebreaker I've come up with for today is, what is your favorite conspiracy theory?
Stop. Oh my god, bro. I love conspiracy theories, which, as you know, because that's probably the whole reason why you picked that. Oh my gosh, wow. Okay. Wow. You go first.
Oh my god, there's way too many for me. Let me put this one this way, is that I really want to go to the Denver airport and
that's what, I swear to God, that was going to be one of my, I'm literally trying to divide between three in my head right now, and that was one of them.
Okay, so that's the one, I'm like the most interested in right now, because I will be traveling there at some point this year, so I really just want to go to the airport and just experience the airport, not necessarily like go run into any tunnels or anything, because it was like an overpriced airport. Like, they put so much money into this like airport, and it's like, why would you put that much money into an airport? So it's just interesting. Also, the
horse. The scary ass horse.
Yes, the horse.
Yeah, let's like see the scary.
I want to see the horse. But I think there's...
Are you and I the same person?
Twin flames. Oopsies. Anyway.
Oh my goodness.
God, we are crazy. Anyway, but no, yeah. So that's like the one I'm the most interested in. So yeah, that's my answer. What's your answer?
Oh my god. Well, that was going to be one of mine, but what's a good one I've heard of here recently? So, can I do like a a theory instead of, like, it's not really, well, it's kind of a conspiracy theory, but it's not really.
I mean, whatever.
I don't know.
Your answer is the answer. So.
Okay, so I don't know. Are you one of those, since we're officially like podcasters? Do you listen to podcasts? Or are you one of those like podcasters that like don't listen to podcasts? You just are creative.
You know, no, I'm not like a hardcore podcaster. Like, I'm not listening to like.
I mean, that's totally fine.
No. I'm not listening to like 7 different types of podcasts. Like, I'm just not that person. I have like my murder mystery ones. I have like one of those. I have one like Dance Moms one because we love trash. And then I have like a Virgo-esque podcast I listen to every once in a while, but I don't stay very consistent. Like, I'll get into moods where I'm like, I just want to listen to podcasts. And so I'll just like sit there for like 3 hours listening like back to back to back. And then I'll listen to our own because, you know, some of the episodes, you know, I want to listen to you like what you do and stuff like that. So I guess you could count ours. But yeah, I'm not a hardcore.
Okay, so you're pretty well versed, I'd say. That's a nice array.
Yeah.
My favorite podcast is a podcast called And That's Why We Drink. And I've been listening to them since 2019. They started in 2017. And when I started, they were the first podcast I ever listened to. And so I didn't realize that like you're supposed to listen to podcasts in order. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, there's some, like if you listen to ours out of order, it really wouldn't be a big deal.
Sure.
Which some people do. I look at our analytics and literally we'll have like people will pick and choose which episode they want to listen to, and I'm like, can you just listen to all of them, please? But you know, it is what it is. So, but with theirs, you should listen in order because there's things that just carry over from episode to episode, even though the topics change each episode. But because they really start like involving their lives in the podcast, and you get to keep up with them as people. And so I listened to it out of order for a little bit, but then I went back and started listening chronologically. And so now I'm finally in 2021 of their episodes, and I've just been like powering through. And one of the most recent episodes I listened to was called The Backdoor Theory. And that was, okay, apparently that was really big on TikTok for a while. And I did not know that. I don't know if I just lived under a rock that entire time period or what, but I never heard of it until this podcast. And so the thing is that M is one of the hosts, and they do like a paranormal or spooky episode or like story every episode, and then Christine is the other one that does she does true crime every episode. And so M one time did a creepypasta, and it didn't go well. A lot of people did not like it, and they were like, dude, we want like real stories. And so M was like, fine, I'm never doing a creepypasta again. But then everybody started suggesting Backdoor Theory.
Hi, Enhance, it's me, Sam, from the future. I just wanted to insert this because whenever we were editing, I realized that I said the wrong name of the theory that I'm talking about. The Backdoor Theory, which is what I have said and will continue to say, is a theory about black holes and how they could lead to other dimensions. And the theory that I'm actually talking about is called backroom theory. So please know, any point moving forward that I say backdoor, I meant backroom. Thanks so much.
To them, and so they're like, you guys realize this is a creepypasta, right? But the reason why I think it's so interesting, and I've literally been racking my brain, is how like community inversed it is. So like everybody that like follows the backdoor theory or did follow, like built this entire world on Reddit. And I'm a huge like believer in egregores. Like I think that if enough people give energy to something, it's going to have power, or that it's going to like become true. Like there's something like there's a lot of like TikTok egregores where people will use a certain sound, and one big creator will be like, use this sound and you'll get a financial surprise within the next 2 weeks. I swear to God, try it. And like 50,000 people will try it, and they find $20 on the side of the road, or they like, you know, real little weird coincidental things happen. So they start believing it. And the more belief that goes into that, the more that more powerful that sound becomes. And so I like really have just been racking my brain about the backdoors theory because of how, I didn't even explain what that is, just in case there is anyone who doesn't know. So the backdoor theory was just this, it was this creepypasta about like the glitch in the Matrix. And there's a lot of external sources that like cover a similar thing, but it's basically that we're in a Matrix, and there are, in video games, if you play any type of video game, there are these rooms called like back rooms or back doors where characters that are active throughout the game but aren't being consistently used in the part of the game that you're in will be stored in this like back room area. And there are different, like for Skyrim, that's a really popular one that people have learned how to hack into the back room, and you can just go into the room and see the characters sitting there doing their like little avatar thing, like in the back room. And it's only specific characters that you can see like anywhere throughout the game. And so the backdoor theory is that we have those in real life too, and that you can glitch out of the Matrix. And so I've just been kind of like racking my brain about it, because I'm like seeing how many people have like quote unquote claimed that it happened, but then also like the people that have posted something about it on social media or something like that have posted like, I got in there and I came and I made it out and everything, and then they just like no one hears from them ever again. And I'm sure there's like some tricks about it. I'm sure people are just being goofy and being like trolls, but still I just thought it was very interesting, and how huge of a community has like built this world. So it's kind of creepy, and I'm like, is it an egregore? So yeah.
But like there's a lot of like conspiracy theories like that have to do with like the Matrix in general, so I think it's like interesting that you brought that up, because people are like, okay, well, when you leave for work and you leave your home and you're like 20 minutes away from your job, does your house even exist right now, or is it only what's in your like full view?
Schrodinger's cat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so interesting. I just love things like that. So that was my icebreaker.
Yay. That was a good one. I liked it. I feel bad that I didn't actually give a conspiracy theory, but that was the main thing I could think of right now, because I'm like, that's just crazy.
It is. No, I mean it is. But it connects to a lot of different conspiracy theories, so it's kind of like a tool to the theory.
Is my shirt inside out? No, it's not. Okay. It's really hot where I'm sitting. I decided to sit next to a window today, guys, and I usually don't. Well, I normally sit next to a window, but it's like on the other side of the room in the shade. But right now, like some of the sun is directly hitting me, and I'm dripping sweat. So please bear with me.
R.I.P. Anyhow, so what's our topic today, Sam?
You're making me introduce it? This is your episode, Gabby. Baby.
Oh my gosh, it's our episode.
Okay, fine. Our topic today is vulnerability.
Beautiful.
Because that is something that Gabby, sweet little Gabby, has struggled with a lot in her mental health journey. Just throwing her out there.
Oh, we're gonna just throw her under the bus.
Today I'm here as moral support as she unloads her journey around vulnerability, because I've always been okay with being vulnerable, so there's never been any issue for me. I'm okay with being an open book. Have been since the day I was born. So it's purely just moral support here today.
Wow, that was rude. Just kidding.
I'm just kidding. No, guys. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Just joking. No, I mean, vulnerability, I feel like, is a topic that a lot of people struggle with, and I think, with how our podcast has been, formed and stabled, I just feel like it's a good topic to talk about, because people don't like to share. People don't like to open up to people. People don't like to throw themselves under the bus, in a sense. Like, you just, I think it's just a good overall topic that we can talk about, and that we can shed some light on from, real people telling real stories, so.
Real people telling real stories. You guys are going to get tired of Gabby and I. We're going to be on the next 3 episodes together. We're on an episode next week, just the 2 of us, and then in 2 weeks, we'll be on an episode that's me and Gabby and someone else. So you're about to get real close and personal with us as we talk about vulnerability.
Yeah. So I guess I'll start with myself here. So, my journey with vulnerability was never easy. I was always, told that I need to kind of keep to myself, that, people don't need to know the deepest, darkest things about me. They might use it against me, things like that. And, I went to high school in that mindset and tried to be vulnerable. Didn't work out in my favor, but it was okay. It was definitely an experience that I, needed to have some personal growth in my life. But when I went to college, I was 10 times more closed off. I didn't want to tell anyone any type of, feelings about anything. I didn't want to, look at anything, look at anyone, but I still wanted to have relationships with people, whether that be friendships, romantic relationships, anything like that. And I had to rediscover what vulnerability was to me. So, was it taking that shot with that friend or that guy? Maybe, but it was a very big moving moment for me, and I actually didn't realize that until I got connected with Samuel.
Wow.
Yeah, so Samuel and I, we were doing card reading, and he pulls out this card, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, what is that? And he was like, it's the vulnerability card. And of course,
Yeah.
I hated every inch of my life, but it was
Yeah, and you got that card so many times.
so many.
in
It was
your
actually,
readings that you did
yeah,
that.
at some point it kind of got like,
Very repetitive.
yeah, it kind of got overused.
If it didn't come out, you would have been worried at some point. Like,
Yeah, I would be like, well, why didn't my card come out? It's like, what's going
Yeah.
on?
Is it saying that I'm being too vulnerable?
Yeah,
now?
exactly. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So, but I mean, but that's the thing. I think vulnerability is where is something where you have to find the balance of it. Like it's not a
Yeah.
set in stone type of thing, and it's different for everyone. There's not a set pattern. But I just took that card and I ran with it and made decisions that would show people that I'm okay with being vulnerable too sometimes, and that was that. And that was like one of my big first lessons with vulnerability.
Yeah. I'll say too that since you brought up college, that just in case you guys didn't know, I was totally kidding. I have also struggled with vulnerability, but probably in a little bit different way than Gabby. College was really the first place that I really started understanding what it meant to be vulnerable. Whenever I grew up, I had a lot of how do I even word this? I had a lot of developmental issues growing up. So that being whether that's like interpersonal, undiagnosed mental illness, undiagnosed ADHD, and the type of ADHD that I have too is there's a lot of people don't realize that there are different types. So like a lot of doctors will use there's like 7 different types of they call it ADD because now ADD and ADHD are the same diagnosis where they used to not be. They're just fall into different categories. And so with the type that I have is commonly known as like ring of fire ADHD, and it causes a lot of like emotional instability, a lot of anger issues, sensitivity to like overstimulation, sensitivity to loud noises, bright lights, all kinds of stuff like that. And so it has a lot of crazy symptoms with it. And so when I was growing up, not having that diagnosis and not having the correct treatment really caused like a damper in my development. And then same thing with like being a closeted gay person in a small town where I was being forced to take on these like conservative values and where I was like reverbing those conservative values. Whenever I finally got to leave and go to college and like really start finding my own, my freshman year was a fucking hellhole. Like my issue with vulnerability was that I didn't know how to, oops, I turned my video off. My issue with vulnerability was that I didn't know how to be, like, there was no middle ground. Like, I was either completely closed off and pushing people away and had huge barriers up, or I was oversharing. And I was constantly spilling things that just shouldn't be shared right away with people that you just met. And my freshman year, I opened up to a lot of people way too quickly. And that caused a lot of anxiety on my part because then I felt like I was in a place where I was too vulnerable to the people around me. And these were some really cool people. I mean, they're people that I still hang out or that I still talk to today on social media. Like, we keep up with each other on social media. We're like connected on LinkedIn. And anytime I post like a life update, they're like, "Oh my gosh, Sam, this is amazing!" And like we got to hang out some like in my later years in college. But for my freshman and sophomore year, I really like damaged a lot of really cool friendships I could have had because I put myself in a position where I felt too vulnerable to people, and that made me act out. And I was very uncomfortable with how much people knew about me, but it was at my own doing in my own hand because I'm the one who told them those things. So that's been a very summarized version of my vulnerability because I just constantly went through phases as I was learning what it meant to be vulnerable and what it meant to have a healthy sharing capacity I just went back and forth between oversharing and then cutting people out and pushing people away. And even to points where I would like be dishonest about things because I just didn't want to be vulnerable, you know? So I think that's a very summarized version of the story.
Yeah, and like on that last thing that you said, that, you know, where you would like either cut them out or like make up something just to avoid that like conversation or that moment of vulnerability, like a lot of people I feel like that I've come in like contact with have that issue where they don't want to talk.
Yeah.
And maybe you can shed some light for me, just as, you know, someone that, you know, fully just will, you know, brings it up and then tries to like cover myself on it. But like, what is that like? Like, what goes through your mind? Like, is it just you rather just make something up to like make that person happy to avoid it, or how does that usually go for you?
Yeah, so I mean, to tell you the truth, most of that time period in my life, like most of my college years are a blur to me, just because I was going through so much developmentally. Like I knew something was wrong. Like I knew that there was something impacting my interpersonal skills, my development, and I went to therapy and learned how to control my behavior. But that didn't really do anything for me internally. I didn't really get full treatment for my internal struggle until I got out of college. And don't get me wrong, like I found some cool coping skills that helped out some during that time period, but a lot of it was a blur. And I will say that I do have this, and all of my friends that that I hang out with a lot, I mean, I'm pretty sure you and I have chatted about this before. Something I've noticed is that most people have like a dishonesty threshold where it's just second thought to be dishonest about certain things. And it's not that people are liars. It's not that people are untrustworthy. It's just that there are certain things that people, they don't think to tell the truth because that is like a insecurity of theirs. And so with mine, I still know mine and I fight it a lot, but it's I don't want to waste my time threshold, if that makes sense. So say that I misspeak on something and I'm like, and I misremember something or something like, you know what, here, I'll give this exact example. So my best friend down in Mobile, before I left Mobile, we hung out all the freaking time. I mean, like literally every single weekend we were doing something together. Like we literally talked on the phone last night for a good like 30 minutes to an hour, just while I was on my way home. And one time we were hanging out, and I mentioned to them that whenever I watched the Netflix show Squid Game, when I watched Squid Game, I mentioned that I watched the dubbed version instead of the sub version because I'm a really slow reader and I didn't want to miss anything. And so I just told them that just chatting. Well, then there was another time we were all hanging out with with a group of people, and I mentioned something. I didn't say that I watched the sub version. I said something that would have made it seem like I did. In that moment, my best friend noticed that I had said something that was contradictory to what I said before, and they weren't saying it in a way to try and like trap me, but they were saying it in a way just to like get clarification. And they were like, I thought you said that you watched the sub version instead the dub version instead of the sub version. And so I was in that moment realized, oh yeah, that's right, I did. Like, what was I relating it to? And in my head, I remembered watching something else where I watched the sub version instead of the dub version. I just got it mixed up. Like I merged the two memories in my head, but explaining that in a group setting took too much time. And I didn't want to, I did not want to waste my time explaining something that was so redundant. And so my immediate reaction was, oh, I did, but there were a few episodes that I went back and watched the dub version 2 instead of the sub version 2 instead of the dub version 2. And they were just like, oh, okay. And in that moment, I realized that I had just lied so easily. And I was like, why did I do that? Like, why did that just, and I went back later and told Haley, I was like, by the way, like, that was not, and I explained then, and they were like, oh, okay, no, that makes sense. They were like, yeah, I totally see that, and it was fine. But if I had to guess, it would have been something like that in college where it would have been counterproductive in a situation for me to tell the truth, or at least from my point of view. Because I do have a very specific situation that we'll probably get more into next episode because of what that topic is. So I guess I'll go ahead and spoiler or whatever
Trailer
it is, or like
tease,
give a little
yeah.
teaser. I know. Next week's episode that we'll be recording, so it will air in 3 weeks from now, whenever we're recording this. So just a week from whenever this episode that you're listening to now is released. That episode is going to be about friend breakups. And so this is about a friend that I had a friend break up with, but it was one of those really toxic situations where you go back and forth in like friendship, where you're not friends for a little while and then you're friends for a little while and then you're not friends for a little, and like something always happens. And so this friend, there was a point where we had stopped being friends, and then there was a mutual friend between us that was playing devil's advocate. And that person that was playing devil's advocate struggled with their weight, same as me. And it was during a time period where I was like getting really in shape. I was doing well for myself, everything else. And so there was like this, and we talked about this, so I'm not assuming this. There is like I asked like, why did this happen later on? And they explained that there was this insecurity because I was doing well, and then that other friend that I was not friends with has always been skinny, always been like just have like your typical like conventionally attractive girl, you know. And so that mutual friend was feeling really insecure and didn't want like the two quote unquote pretty friends to end up being friends again and her getting left out. And so she was just going between us, like lying and saying that one person said one thing, one person said another thing. So this friend came to me crying while it was over the summer, and called me because I was not in Mobile that summer, and was like, oh my gosh, like, insert name here, the friend that I used to be friends with that I'm not anymore, and that I wasn't at that moment, said, I asked her if she wanted to go get a burger with me, and she said, do you really think that you need a burger?
Oh.
And so my response to that was really, really hateful. Like, I responded, it infuriated me. And I mean, just to be completely honest, like, it's whether this person and I were friends or not, whether they deserved it or not, because they did a lot of shitty things to me, I should have never went there with what I'm about to say. But my response was taking a dig at their eating disorder. And it was to I'm not even going to say what I said because it's very triggering and I don't want anyone to feel like that's how I feel now. But my response was to this, like, to the tune of, they don't have a reason to say that to you because the only reason they are X is because they X, you know? And so that was, that was a very not cool thing to say. And so later on, we found out that mutual friend was playing devil's advocate. And so we talked face to face. And that friend that I'm no longer friends with wanted to rekindle our friendship. And I told them I needed space and time because a lot of shit had happened. And so way later, that came back and bit me in the ass. And way later, they said something about, like, one of the main reasons why they knew that one of the main reasons they realized that mutual friend was playing devil's advocate is because they repeated that I said something about a eating disorder that person had, or that the person, let me find a better way to explain this. So, when that came back and bit me in the ass, it was in a situation where the friend that I used to be friends with, came to me after we had started actually hanging out again and said that she realized that the other friend was playing devil's advocate because that other friend that was playing devil's advocate repeated something that I said that she just knew I wouldn't say. And I was like, well, what was it? And it was what I said about the eating disorder. And so in that moment, I had to make that, it was really, that was my senior year. Right. So I had grown a lot. Like, I had done a lot of growth and went to therapy a lot. And so I told her, like, I took a little bit to think about how I wanted to admit that to her. And I told her, I was like, hey, I want to talk to you and I want to let you know, like, that she said, I did say. And I was like, this situation was this. This is what she said that you said. I was very angry and I bounced back very quickly because I felt like it was unfair for, you to say that to her about her, wanting to go get food. And I was like, but I just felt like, I know that I shouldn't have said that. And that's not fair. And that's a very vulnerable thing to admit guilt like that and to admit when you're wrong, especially when it's something so shitty like that, like something that should have never left, especially as someone who struggles with an eating disorder and struggles with body dysmorphia that has birthed this eating disorder. There's digs you don't do, And she said, you know, like, and whether this is true or not, because that specific friend had been dishonest a lot throughout our friendship, but they said that they never said that to the mutual friend, that they never told them that they shouldn't go get fast food, you know, because like, or go get a burger. And, you know, whether it was true or not, it doesn't matter. I still shouldn't have went there. And so that's where my vulnerability really picked up, was whenever I would say things without thinking, because I have a temper and I am very quick to anger. Whenever I would say things in anger and then later not feel them whenever I wasn't angry, it was that I didn't feel, one, I didn't want to accept responsibility for my actions, but two, I felt like it would be counterproductive to dig into it and tell the truth of what I said or what I was feeling or what I did or so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think, you know, that makes a lot of sense, and like I wouldn't have ever thought about it that way. I just know, like, when situations like that happen and people do lie about it, there's usually not, I don't want to even say lie, that's not even a great word. They just admit the truth. Like, don't admit the truth.
They have some sort of dishonesty.
I mean, it is some sort of dishonesty, but I just feel like that just causes more pain for that person, because when they find out later that you were dishonest with them again. So, like, I always wonder, like, how does that, like, yes, it puts it off, but then if it comes back again later, which, I mean, if it's in, like, very serious cases, I feel like it usually does. But, you know, if you continue this dishonesty on this one topic, it makes it worse. So then it's like, okay, so then why are we... I can understand if it's, like, something, like, small, but if it's, like, a huge deal or a problem that, like, is consistent, I just don't know why there's this continuance of dishonesty instead of just being vulnerable. Is it the sense of, like, being, like, afraid of, like, the consequences?
I mean, think about that repeated lesson we got over and over and over again as children. Like, if you keep weaving the web of lies, you're going to get caught in it, you know? Like, you're going to have to keep on going and going and going until it's too much for you to take on. But I will say that it was never that simple in situations with, like, me where I was being dishonest and something like that. Because it was never something that, like, I mean, like, let's take that exact situation, for instance. So say that friend that was on the other side and then the mutual friend that was playing devil's advocate between us. Once we realized that friend was playing devil's advocate, they sunk themselves. You know what I'm saying? Like, they were like, so glad you guys were able to talk, and, like, started a bunch of shit. I mean, like, was like, I mean, over, like, literally was spying on us, and that's how they found out we were talking. Like, it was a whole, I mean, yeah, like, it was a whole other level of toxic. And so when that happened, of course, we naturally cut out that mutual friend. So how easy would it have been for me to be like, wow, she said I said that? That is such bullshit. Because that other friend already believed that I wouldn't have said something like that. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, it never was something that I would have eventually got caught in it. I could have just lied. But I didn't. I didn't want to. I didn't want to, you know, like, that was not something that... Well, and I feel
like, yeah, that statement was a little bit more, like, that needed to be a truthful situation, like, for sure. Like, just like, hey, yeah, I did say that, but this is what was going on, which is what you did. And I think that's why you're able to keep, like, healthier relationships, because you can, like, admit that and be vulnerable and say, yeah, that happened and I'm sorry. And I think that's interesting. And I don't know, I find the whole vulnerability topic really just interesting, because it's, like, in so many different ways, like, just being open to people. And, you know, I struggled with that for a little bit, because, you know, I had friends, but I didn't have friends, especially in middle school, grade school. It was a very interesting dynamic. So I had to decide, like, what was going to be important to tell people and not important to tell people. And most of the time I just didn't tell anyone about myself, because I already had this preset in my mind, like, they don't like me, you know, so why give them anything about me to thrive off of? Like, it was just this weird thing. And then high school, I felt like I was a lot more vulnerable. I had my first relationships in high school, like boyfriend-girlfriend situations. And I felt like I was vulnerable, but I always felt like there was, like, a wall that I couldn't get over, because I wasn't wanting to be open, because I was afraid of being hurt, which, I mean, you're gonna get hurt regardless. I mean, I've learned that. in those type of situations. It's better to be open and honest, rather than putting these walls up.
Yeah. I will say too that, I mean, there is, like I said earlier, like one of my biggest struggles with learning how to be vulnerable was learning when not to be, and like what threshold I should like stay within. Because a lot of times, additionally to this, throughout high school and then in my earlier years in college, anytime I would try to be vulnerable, it came out in like an attention seeking way. So, and that's something I never realized that I was like just looking for attention. Never, like there was this one guy in high school that he saw right through me every single time. Like, and we kind of had this like weird competition thing, and it wasn't like an intentional like he's my arch nemesis like you see in like the TV shows and stuff like that. It was never anything like that. But we were like really good friends when we were in grade school. Like when we were really little, I remember that like it had to be, we had to have been so young. But what happened was that there was one year where we weren't in the same class, and that next year when we came back together in the same class, that's when we were just two very different people and we were no longer close. And so at that point in time, we did have this whole like frenemy thing. We were in the same friend group all throughout middle school, junior high school, and high school. And he just, when it was just me and him, he'd be nice to me and we'd have a good friendship. But then whenever other people were around, he would start being an asshole to me again and just making like mean comments to me and stuff like that. But he always saw right through my bullshit. Like he saw how annoying I was as a human being whenever I was not able to. And he would say it all the time, like, you're just doing this for attention. And I never understood why he was saying that, because it wasn't like I wasn't intentionally being like, oh, let me share this really dark thing about myself for attention. It was never like that. It was always just right. I saw a place to insert something and I did, you know? And I never really thought about it, but as an adult looking back, it was definitely that I wanted someone to care. Like that was the root of it. And that still is no excuse to communicate in that way and to have vulnerability in that way. But I just wanted someone to care about me enough to care about the situation I was talking about, to ask about it, to dig further. And no one ever really did. And so it was like just a desperate attempt over and over and over again to have people care a little bit deeper, you know? And
yeah, I think go ahead.
No,
sorry.
You're good. That was, really the last thing of it is just that I realized in adulthood, like after learning how to communicate vulnerability healthily, that people do care, you know, like the right people care. People care whenever, like the people that you allow into your life, if they're good people and they're healthy relationships, they're going to care whenever you tell them things, you know? And that was a lot more satisfying than, you know, pleading for someone to care in an unhealthy, like, attention-seeking way.
Yeah, no, actually, I was just going to say that. So, for me, I knew that people cared. But especially in, like, I guess more the romantic relationship side, because I feel like with friends, I learned my boundaries with vulnerability and levels okay. But I always struggled with vulnerability with a partner because I never wanted to be the one that said something that made that person leave.
Yeah.
And I knew that, like, especially in high school, like, my, like, first true love, they know who they are. I don't know, what if they're listening? Anyway, but no, like... Like, they introduced me to Taco Bell and all this random stuff. People know. Anyway, so, besides the point.
I have a cute little first Taco Bell story, too.
It was the cutest. Yes, oh my god, please. No, honestly, and, like, the relationship was really sweet, really cute. I have always told, like, my friends and stuff, like, it's like being in a movie. Everything was just so, like, timing was great. Like, all of that was great, but... I was really scared to do literally anything, if you get my drift.
Yeah.
Like, I'd go on dates and stuff, but, like...
Letting people pass that.
No, I was too afraid that I wasn't... And I think this was a lot of self-doubt, too. Not just... And I think that's where my vulnerability kind of intertwines with this. It's with self-doubt, because I didn't think I was pretty enough. I have... you know, hyperpigmentation. So like, oh my gosh, like they probably are going to be like, oh my God, she's so ugly. Like she has this issue. Oh, she's fat. Or, you know, I had all of this like intertwining self-doubt with my vulnerability. Cause like, and it's one of those things where you have to like build your confidence up for sure. 100%. I mean, my like last partner, my ex, he literally like made me feel really pretty. Obviously the situation was not the best, but like I felt really heard and listened to when I needed it the most, and I felt really pretty, and it, I don't know, I was just like, wow, okay. But then I realized I don't need that kind of attention to feel pretty, and I don't need to not be able to do like relationship stuff because people don't think I'm pretty. You know, like if I want to kiss a boy, I'm gonna go kiss a boy.
Yeah.
If I want to go hang out with my friends and we're gonna go to the pool, and you know, I shouldn't be self-conscious about my body in a swimsuit. You know, just things like that. And so I feel like a lot of my vulnerability stems from self-doubt and self-confidence, which is always really funny to me when people are like, oh my God, Gabby, you're so confident. And I look at them and I'm like,
why?
Do you guys need an Advil?
Like,
do you need glasses? Like,
why? Because I'm comfortable in my body.
I don't get it.
Like, I'm confident.
Well, and it took me a really long time. Yeah, and it took me a really long time to get there. So when people are like, "Oh, you're so confident," I'm just like, I have still such a long journey to go.
Yeah.
Because your confidence and your love for yourself is, and I feel like an everyday challenge.
Yeah.
Like there's days where I'm like, "Oh my God, I am so ugly today." Not feeling it.
Yeah.
And then there's other days where I'm like, oh my gosh, I am drop dead gorgeous.
Yeah.
Everyone is so nice to me. Everything's going great. You know, so I feel like self-doubt and confidence and vulnerability for me is like a consistent day-by-day basis for sure.
I do want to go back and touch on what you were talking about with like hyperpigmentation. What's so sad is that, and I feel like you and Tyler probably touched on this some in your episode about culture and conformity. If not, we're about to dive into it. I know that we touched on it some in my episode with Morgan about feeling confident in your community. But a lot of that insecurity probably has to do with living in like a white American society. Because like
it very much does.
Hyperpigmentation makes it sound like you're overpigmented, but it's that you just have normal pigmentation and normal skin patterns for your ethnicity, you know? And like you being like a non-white person living in a majority white society probably made you think that people like men are going to think you're ugly because you have like a different skin pattern and because your skin reacts differently to things. And that's just societal too. And that's what a lot of people that struggle with vulnerability are afraid, like, if I open up this way, or if I state this way, or if I act this way, then people are not going to like me, because that's what society tells them. That's what TV tells them. That's what media tells them.
Well, and it's, you know, we didn't get to touch on it in our conformity discussion there, cultural and conformity session, but I think it's that. I think it's also not fitting it again, it's like oddly not fitting into either culture, because like in the Middle Eastern tradition, most women are skinny, dark hair, dark eyes. You know, there's no they try to mask all the flaws because they don't want to show the flaws, because you need to find a man. And that's another huge thing I feel like for me, again, with the whole relationship vulnerability thing, is like I still have so much to learn, so much to learn about it. But you know, I even think about like being a bigger woman, and like I was like working at the market with my family at our family business, and this Iraqi woman, she's honestly sweet, beautiful woman, and she's older, so you know, she's got the hunchback going on. She's, you know, she looks like a normal person, like in any like culture, but due for the fact of just stating the facts of the cultural difference, you know, older women are allowed to not be as put together per se. She made a comment about my weight to my mom, and I obviously overheard it. Like, and pretty much in direct translation, it was like, oh, your daughter's really beautiful, but she should lose some weight. pretty much was the direct translation. And I was very upset.
Yeah, rightfully so.
And you know, my mom's trying to make the sale, so I know she like didn't mean it in any type of way. I'm like, oh yeah, and then like she just kind of went back to the business aspect of it to try to like divert the conversation. But I literally like after the lady left, I looked at my mom and I was like, hey, I'm leaving. You didn't stand up for me.
Yeah.
You know, I need to remove myself from this situation, because now I am not happy at all to help you right now. Like, I need to go help myself. I need to go figure out why this is bothering me. Because, I mean, at that point, I was pretty okay with my body, but everyone else around me wasn't. Yeah. So
society's the problem, not you. That's the thing that I always remind myself is, like, society's the problem, not you.
Exactly. I just, it just destroyed me.
I'm kind of in a similar place, and this kind of goes back into vulnerability with, like, I've been single since 2017, and whenever I was in my last relationship, I gained so much weight. Like, in 2017, oh my God, like, because I put on the normal, like, freshman 15, right? And I lost that back because I started, like, jogging, I was running a lot and everything else, and I was getting, like, in really good shape. And then that summer is whenever I met my boyfriend at the time. And that relationship was just so, oh my God, like, and I'm not going to go into too much detail because people will know who he is, like, people that know us. And I have no malice toward him. I wish him no ill will or anything like that. Like, I've heard that he's moved on and he's happy, and that's great, amazing for him. And I was not a perfect boyfriend by any means. Like, I was not just a walk in the fucking park. I had a lot of trauma. I had a lot of vulnerability issues. I had a lot that I had to work through too. So please understand that whenever I say this. But it was just so terrible. It was so toxic. And we had he had a friend that he had a very codependent friendship with. And he came to me and he asked me, he was like, well, like, he got me to do, like, a tarot reading for him. And it was, like, a really accurate tarot reading. And, like, I'm one of those people that I fully believe in tarot. But I tell people, like, take it as you will. Like, if you think it's good advice for you and it feels accurate for you, good. But if it's telling you to do something you're uncomfortable with, don't do it. Like, I am not some master religious leader going to the universe on your behalf or anything like that. I'm just a guy with some cards that believes in magic and energy, you know? Like, it's really that simple. But he came to me and he asked a question about that friend, and it said, you know, like, some space would be good, whatever else. And so he was like, yeah, I've been thinking about, like, unfriending that person, blah, 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 blah. And, like, I've been thinking about putting some space there because I feel like we're too codependent. And that was before we started dating. We were just friends at that point. And so after we started dating, he, like, made it his mission to, like, cut this friend out. And this was a friend that, like I said, he had a, like, codependent friendship with. Like, they were together almost 24/7. They hung out all the time. And it was just, I mean, like, it was something that, like, to cut them out randomly, that's just going to blow up. And so he went to, I basically kept telling him, because we would go to do things, and that friend had started talking about me and saying that it was me that was making him cut that friend out. And I was like, no, it's not. Like, you're not my favorite person. I'm not going to sit here and lie. Like, you're not. Like, I think you're annoying and obnoxious, but I have never once told him to stop being your friend. You know, like, I haven't even voiced to him how much you annoy me. Like,
that's not my problem. Yeah.
And so
not my monkeys, not my circus.
And so we would go to hang out. Like, he and I would go out to grab food or something like that. And we would have, like, a little group. And so I would text that friend and invite them, because I'm like, it's not, like, I shouldn't have. I involved myself too much at that point, and I was going against him too much. But it was the thing that, like, I don't want to be blamed for him ending a friendship. Like, I didn't want to be that boyfriend, you know? And so basically it just blew up into this whole thing where I kept telling him, I was like, if you want to end the friendship, cutting them off like this is not okay. Like, just cutting them out randomly. I was like, you guys had a, like, mutually codependent toxic friendship. Like, you know, like, you've expressed that to me. If you want to end the friendship, you need to go have a discussion with them. And if you care about them and think that the friendship is salvageable and able to be healthy, go do it, you know? And so this is really a tangent, but this was the beginning of, like, my downfall in that relationship. But basically he went to that friend and told that friend, like, just went off on them and was really mean to them. And so later they asked if they could talk to me, and I talked to them, and they confided a lot of stuff in me and like cried to me. And I felt really bad because I was like, just because I don't want to be your friend doesn't mean I wanted to take away your best friend. You know, like that's not what this was at all, you know? And so I guess that friend just didn't like that, and then went and told, like, because I was an RA that year, went and told all of the like ACs, which are the area coordinators, that I was forcing my boyfriend at the time to stop being friends with her and all this other stuff. And I was like, why? Well, come to find out, because he was saying that. And like, especially once we started like breaking up and everything, like he started saying that like I was the one who like tore him away from all of his friends. And I'm like, bro, you're literally the one who came to me and told me that you were wanting to stop being friends with a lot of these people. Like, what, like, you know? And so our entire,
like, you can't put all the blame on me.
Yeah, and our entire relationship was like that. And so it was so just like, I was vulnerable with someone. Like, he was one of the first people I opened up to about a lot of stuff. Like, I mean, and he was a couple of years older than me. 2 years and 2 days older than me, I believe, like, to be exact. And so, I mean, he was the very first person that I was very vulnerable with. I mean, he was my first person I ever, like, had sex with. I lost my virginity to him. New vulnerability all around. And which he was working through a lot of stuff too. He had some really bad anger issues, and that definitely seeped into our relationship. But once it finally ended, and I told him, I was like, look, I don't want to do this anymore. And it was like the final time that I said I didn't want to do this anymore. I closed up, and I had the opportunity, and I don't want to get too much into this because I feel like, again, we'll probably talk about this in the friend breakup episode, but there was another guy that I was really, really good friends with my freshman year that I kind of had feelings for since that time, but I didn't say anything because he was straight. And I was like, you know, no need to make the friendship weird. And so then I started dating my ex, and that friend came to visit us over the summer and came out to me as not straight. I'm not going to go into what his sexuality was or anything like that, because I really don't want to give too many details as to who he is, because, you know, again, no malice towards any of these people. Moved on, have healed. But after my ex and I broke up, that friend and I kind of like started talking-ish, not really anything deep. It was more of like a friends with benefits thing. But I made my intentions very, very clear, and he also made it seem like his intentions were the same as mine. And basically, long story short, how that situation happened was that I saw him on a dating app, and I didn't react to it because this was after we had started hanging out and we had talked about like hooking up and stuff like that. And so I thought about it whenever I saw it, and I was like, what does that mean if I swipe right on him? And so I just didn't say anything about it. And so later that day I told him, I was like, hey, I saw you on this dating app, and I didn't want to react yet. I wanted to wait and talk to you about it. And I was like, but you know, we've been hanging out and we've expressed some interest in each other, and I want to let you know that I'm going to swipe right, and I'm doing it with the intention because I like you. And I think that, well, actually, it wasn't that I told him, I didn't say that I liked him. I said that I was interested in him, and that I would be interested in doing something more than friendship. We had both, like, within, like, the past few months gotten out of really, really bad relationships. I mean, like, really toxic, very abusive relationships. And so, you know, the fact that we were getting to hang out, it was really nice. And it was like a breath of fresh air, you know, like I was hanging out with someone who was cool, who I thought was healthy, who I thought whenever they said that they had certain intentions, they meant it, you know? And so, whenever I told him that, I was like, I'm swiping right on you because I am interested in you and I would like to, you know, look at the being more than friends. He said, okay, cool. And I was like, if you swipe right, I'll know you feel the same way. And if you swipe left and we don't match, we don't have to talk about it again. We'll leave it. We'll just stay friends. It'll be chill. It'll be fine. And so later that day, I swiped right on him. And a little while later, I got a notification that we matched. And so we started talking on the dating app. And so then from there, of course, it didn't go the way I wanted it to. And it completely just like flipped. And we were at this like movie night with some friends. And before too many people got there, he was very like, I mean, he like literally sat next to me on the couch. Like he, like, you know what I'm saying? Like put his arm around me, like all this other stuff. And then once people showed up, he like acted completely different. And it was another situation again where it was like nice to me whenever it's just us, but then not when other people are around, you know? And that whole, I mean, it just went, I won't even get into it because I've dealt with that trauma, but still that was two situations back to back to back where I was really vulnerable with someone. And he was another person that I really opened up to about a lot of stuff. So it was like, got out of a really bad relationship, took a break, started hanging out with someone that was a friend of mine. We realized that we were a little interested in each other as more than friends, whether that was something serious or not. To start with, it was not serious at all. So like in his defense, it did not start off as like, oh, well, I like you. It was after we had been hanging out for a little bit and I saw him on the dating app that I was like, you know, I am interested in him, you know? And I had had a little crush on him before I got in the relationship with my ex, you know? And so I was like, okay, so 2 situations back to back, really vulnerable, really opened up, and I was crushed, you know? And that's taken me years to really get past. And I finally, this year, have gotten to the point where I'm really starting to actually fully get past it. And that's good, but it's 2022, and that was in 2017. And it's been 5 years, you know? And so vulnerability is something that, like, you're not going to just learn how to be vulnerable overnight. You can learn the steps to becoming vulnerable in certain situations, but like with me, it's very easy for me to admit whenever I was wrong about something, and very easy for me to admit whenever I said something not cool and apologize. But it's not easy for me to open up to men. It's not easy for me to let love into my life. You know, like
I 100% agree. Well, you know, and just to kind of wrap it up here with, you know, just some last thoughts, like, I think relationship vulnerability is a lot more like person to person, relationship to relationship basis, because there's so much that goes into that. There's so much. You have to listen to them, they have to listen to you, you have to make sure that they actually want to listen to you, that they actually want to be there for you. Because like with, you know, regular day by day vulnerability with like friendships and stuff, kind of like I was saying, like I feel like that's somewhat easy manageably. Like it's very easily managed. But then like relationships, because you have all of these extra factors, that's where it gets really screwy. And like even when you were telling your story, I kind of like sat back and was like thinking about this episode and how it has flowed so far, and like I even sit here and think about, wow, I can't even be completely vulnerable on this podcast sometimes because I get nervous or scared, or I don't want to release too much information about, like, into the world. And I mean, that's the honest truth. Like I struggle with vulnerability a lot, but it all comes in time.
That's something too that, like, with my vulnerability, it's super easy for me to share things about myself. I really have become like an open book, because if I'm willing to share it, it means I've worked through it, and it's something I think is worth putting out there. But there are other things that I'm like, I get really nervous sharing things when it pertains to other people. And part of it's because, you know, I want to respect other people's privacy, and I don't want to like overstep and put someone's information out there. And also, like, I feel weird telling my side of things when other people are not here to also tell their side, you know? But the thing is that another thing with vulnerability, I was friends with a lot of people in college that used me as the scapegoat because I had like emotional issues and because I had emotions, and they would allow really toxic people around them that they didn't even like. That was the thing too, is like that specific friend that I was just talking about, we hung out a lot throughout college, and there were people that he could not stand, but he would like let them come over to his apartment and like drink and hang out and stuff like that. And those people that he couldn't stand, or at least he was telling me he couldn't stand them, specifically did not like me and would like start shit with me, like one person in specifically. And so I would be constantly put in positions where like this person would do like sneaky manipulative shit to piss me off, and whenever I got mad and like popped off, then they would be like, oh my god, Sam's causing drama. And like my friends never had my back because it was easy. And he even admitted that years later. He was like, yeah, that was not cool for me to do. He's like, I'm gonna be 100% honest, it was just because it was easy, because that person was already convincing everyone else it was you, so it was just easy to say it was you. And he's like, I shouldn't have, because it wasn't. He's like, they started it, you know, and they were doing it on purpose, but it just, you know. And so that's like the final, I think the like final blow that is made it so hard for me to fully open up again, is that at what point is something that I say that's my truth, that I feel like could help other people and that I've spent years healing from, at what point is someone going to go, that's not the truth, that's not what happened, and is going to twist it around and try to use it against me, you know? And there's a little weight added to it whenever you do it on a platform to where anybody and everybody can hear it. And because they've done it time and time again, like the people that I've mentioned just in this episode, they did it. They took my words, they twisted them, they lied, they backstabbed, they would say one thing to me and then act like they didn't to other people. So whenever that happens in interpersonal friendships, you can go make new friends. But when you do it out loud to the universe, to people listening to on a podcast, on social media, the weight becomes a little heavier, because if they were able to manipulate other people into thinking that you were the devil in a situation, how many people will that spread to, you know?
Right. No, 100%. And, I think, again, it comes with, when is it time to be vulnerable and when is it time to put up that wall?
Yeah.
Which I think everyone struggles with. I don't think, one person is perfect with vulnerability. Like,
yeah,
I've never met anyone that's perfect with vulnerability. So it's just it's an interesting trail. It's an interesting topic. And it's just interesting to see how other people react to vulnerability.
Yeah. At the end of the day, loving yourself and being comfortable with yourself and knowing your truth and knowing that just having that confidence in your own being is what will help with vulnerability, and it will help
100%.
you. Like, I mean, even if you're in a place where you don't feel the need to be vulnerable with other people, just being vulnerable with yourself is a huge step. Allowing yourself to admit things to you, and that's been a huge part of my healing. Is like, sometimes it wouldn't be fruitful to go back and have conversations with other people, but just having that conversation with yourself is the biggest step.
Yeah, I think my piece of advice would be, believe in yourself and take it day by day, and you're going to figure out, everything's going to play out the way it's supposed to. You just put your intentions out there, believe in yourself, and everything will be okay.
Yeah.
So thanks, Sam, for joining us today.
Thanks, Gabby. It was great.
Oh my
Hopefully
gosh.
I can come back on a future episode or something.
Oh my gosh, yeah, like for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Me too.
Part 2, season 2. Part 2, season 2. Because I've been saying that to people, like, we've got chased.
It's like the eyeball emoji, like.
I've been literally, whenever, like, literally in the religion episode, Parker was like, oh, we can talk about this for hours. We'll get into we don't need to get into it. I was like, part 2, season 2. And she was like, part 2, season 2. And just, Chase, we're already having a part 2, season 1. So, great times.
Right. All right. Well, Enhance, you can find all of our social media and buffoonery. For Enhance, it's going to be on, Spotify here. So just don't forget to follow, rate, comment, subscribe.
Yes.
On all of the social medias, YouTube, Apple Podcast, and Anchor. And then you can also find my personal social media at gsabat1234 on Instagram. And then TikTok is GabbyS80. And then Sam, your socials?
Oh my god. You can find me at Sammed if you do. That's SAMMED if you do. I am that on TikTok and Twitter and Instagram. And please go rate and subscribe. And that's something that we've noticed, is that we have really great episode listens. But our consistent listeners is about double what our followers are. And we'll have some episodes where we have hundreds of listens. But then we'll have other episodes that have 5. So if you
I don't understand.
Yeah, so if you go subscribe or follow, you'll get notified whenever we have new episodes up. And then if you'll just drop a comment, rate the episode, rate the podcast, drop a like, that helps us a lot, and that helps spread the podcast and helps grow our community. So please, please, please do all the things. And we love you so much, and we'll give you a prize, and that prize will be our voices and our presence in your ears.
More episodes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And I just want to, I know we're kind of mid-ish season. So again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for listening to us. Thank you for giving us a chance to, spread some love and knowledge, and able to give us some comfort.
Yes.
Letting us be able to be listened to and heard out and live our dreams.
It's really nice whenever you guys reach out to me on social media too and say how much an episode helped you. So whenever I say slide into our DMs, I really mean it. It's not just so that I can feel popular. and have attention. It's so that I can see that we are here.
I mean, love that, but right. Main purpose is to hear y'all out.
Yeah, and to like just know that we are doing what our mission is, which is to help people heal, give people a safe place to heal, and to have real stories by real people highlighted and spread to others, and give people and an audience something they can relate to.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Okay. Well, on that dramatic, beautiful note, I love
That's
you,
me.
Sam.
I am dramatic and beautiful. It's fine.
I mean, same. But we love you guys, and you guys have a good rest of the week.
Yes, bye.
Enhance your peace,
Your joy,
and your existence.
Do